We are live, and Auburn is the #1 overall seed. Can't wait to break this whole thing down.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened, because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off, and you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie 5.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast, live edition, like we do every Sunday night. And we're ready to talk about something extremely exciting. Auburn's the #1 overall seed. We're going to break down the resume, the bracket, and everything that goes along with it. And I got my other two #1 seeds, Daryl Dapprich and Taylor Korn, ready to break everything down. Before we jump into that, though, we got to give a shout out to Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. I know both of y'all got packages recently. Are you still loving it? Is it still the greatest salsa you've ever tried?
I haven't had an opportunity to try it yet. I've been traveling. I've been in Nashville for, I feel like I was there for a month. My mom sent me a picture.
Yeah.
Last week, I believe.
Yeah.
And she made a purchase at the grocery store and she loved it.
Awesome.
I've pounded both jars. I've gone through the not so hot one, and then I'm like, I'm going to give it a shot and get the hot one. And I put it on nachos. Like I build nachos like real hot. It's really good stuff.
Love it. Go to UncleKeith'sRedSauce.com. Use coupon code TheBarn25 to take 25% off your order. If you live in Alabama, any Publix in the state of Alabama, you can get it. Show them some love. And you know they're pumped up about the #1 overall seed as well. So show them some love. Uncle Keith's Red Sauce. It's good, y'all. #1 overall seed. Great resume. First time in program history, you're the #1 overall seed. Only the second time ever you're a one seed in general. Daryl, I'm going to let you kick off. Just talk about what this means. Auburn, everything that Auburn's done to kind of get to this point and how impressive this feat actually is.
Well, it's one thing to be a #1 seed, and Auburn has accomplished that before, only I believe once. But to be the #1 overall seed is a completely different animal. And I want to say this: I think it's really indicative of looking at the whole body of work instead of looking at trends or recency bias. The committee did a good job and said, "Look, maybe Florida is playing better than Auburn right now, or maybe, but." That doesn't matter. I want to look at the whole body of work. I want to look at the whole resume. And that speaks volumes about how Auburn's played. I think they also know that when you win the regular season title in a league that puts 14 teams in the NCAA tournament, that's sick. I mean, that's ungodly. And so I think they gave them credit for that. At the end of the day, I've said this before on another show, I felt like, and I want to get y'all's opinion, I felt like Auburn wrapped up the #1 overall seed of the tournament in Lexington. In Rupp. I don't think whatever happened after that was going to – now, some people think they had to win that Ole Miss game. Maybe they did. But I think it was done at that point. And the resume is about as impressive as you can get in college basketball. And the ACC getting 4 teams as opposed to 14, I think was the big difference between Auburn and Duke getting that #1 overall seed.
Taylor, 33 games, I believe, we played. 24 teams are tournament teams. Just – incredible schedule. Just your thoughts on the #1 overall seed, what it means, and how you feel about us handling the pressure.
I feel like they deserved it. I agree with what Dab said. I think we have such short-term memory in terms of you get so high after a big win, and if you lose the next game, you start to forget about the win a little bit. But then after you win again, after dropping a game, then everything's fine. And I think that so many people look at the basketball season like football. A win doesn't ruin your season, ruin your chances of reaching your big picture goal. And I think what they accomplished this season, I mean, I've been trying to keep a list of the records that they've broken, the history that they've made in terms of Auburn basketball and throughout the country. And it is a mile long. So it's hard to look at everything kind of from a bird's eye view, big picture perspective when, the emotions are so high and then so low after losses. But what they've accomplished is insane. And I think they were deserving. Obviously, the way this season ended, not ideal, but look at their schedule. Look at their schedule.
It's crazy. The 16-5 quad one wins. I mean, you played 21 quad one games. And that's those last 4 games where you go, 1-3 or whatever. I think they're all quad one game. Even the Ole Miss game, I believe, was a quad one game. And if it wasn't, it was, a high quad 2 game. It's not like you're losing, games you shouldn't lose. Like you're losing to some of the best of the best with a road game mixed in there. This team does play a little bit better with a chip on their shoulder. So is it going to be tough to get that chip on your shoulder when you're the number 1 overall seed? Is that going to be tough for them to kind of harness that, where I feel like they're so good when they play, when the sort of the world against them? The basketball we played when Auburn was trying to get to be the AP number 1 was some of the best basketball I think I've ever seen Auburn play. How does this maybe, do you think this hinders that at all? Like, could you see that being an issue?
Well, I think that the point you make about the chip on the shoulder, everything that our fan base is going crazy over, and Jim Dunaway asked in the chat, that I think that Auburn needs to use the narrative, even if it's hyper-inflated, and say, we're the number 1 overall seed. Now, it doesn't matter to me, and the fans are overreacting to it, but use it. Use it anyway. If you're Bruce Pearl, you say, hey, we're the number 1 overall seed, and we got the toughest draw. But by the numbers that said the lower number wins, that 31 versus 30, whatever, who cares if I don't think it's that big of a deal, but make that it is.
Yeah.
That'll keep the chip on their shoulder. Hey guys, you're the number 1 overall seed, but they still didn't show you the respect. They disrespected you because they made you have the toughest draw. Use it, inflate it, lie about it, whatever, but just throw it out there to give them to have that little edge, that little chip.
Taylor, this one's for you. Your boy Jim Dunaway, our boy Jim Dunaway, he says he thinks Auburn has the toughest draw of the ones. What do you think? Do you agree, disagree?
I mean, if you're looking at their opponents, and because the way that I looked at it, I don't know how much I want to sit there and compare to other teams, because the draw is the draw at the end of the day. So, let's look at the teams that are in front of them and go from there. Yeah. Because I feel like, worrying about that, it's what good's it going to do? Maybe it'll provide some motivation. And I think that Bruce is very good at finding ways to motivate teams. He'll find a statistic. He'll find a record that can be broken. He'll find something to get the team motivated. But I think it wasn't going to be easy, no matter where they ended up.
Yeah.
No one has, an easy. People will have easier paths. No one's going to have an easy path. And one of the reasons I feel so confident about this team going into the postseason is how well they've played on neutral sites. I'm looking at the season as a whole, and how well they've played on the road. A lot of our guards are shooting substantially better from 3 on the road and against elite competition. So, I feel confident in this team heading into the postseason, regardless of how the season ended.
Yeah, I think something that I was just going to say real quick that is a very important point that Taylor made is that, number 1, when people talk about tough draws, nothing was tougher than Maui. At least in the NCAA tournament, you get breaks. You had to play 4 teams in 4 days. The second thing is, a lot of times people get cold in the NCAA tournament because of the bigger arenas. Auburn has shot the basketball at such an elite level in 2 gyms that they're going to be playing in, hopefully over the next 2 weeks. Lexington and Atlanta. There is a history there where they have shot the lights out in those 2 arenas.
I honestly did not care about the number 1 overall seed as much as I did about the location. I felt like people were just locked in that Duke was going to choose the East regardless. And I was like, man, I don't know. Then that Sweet 16 Elite 8 round would be in New Jersey. Do they get a better pull there from fans? I know it would draw teams like Alabama away from Atlanta. They would have to play Alabama or somebody like that in Atlanta, which would make it a little bit tougher. But I wasn't so locked in that Auburn was going to get the South region anyway. I was like, I don't care if we're the 3rd seed, 4th seed. I don't care what it is. As long as we get the South region, you could put whoever you want in this bracket. I like Auburn against any of them. And I like the draw. I think Florida's is probably Florida's got, I mean, they got a pretty tough one. Duke's got a pretty tough one. I don't know, man. I think we may have actually lucked out a little bit. I mean, talking about that Louisville game, some people, and I think Auburn fans in general, I think they feel like you have to order your tickets through the Louisville box office because it's in Kentucky. Like it's like Auburn fans won't travel to Lexington. I mean, we got 2,000 people into Cameron Indoor. We're going to pack that thing out. Like it's going to be it'll be as close to 50-50, I think, as it could possibly be. And there's no guarantee Louisville's going to get by Creighton anyway.
Amen. This automatic Auburn's playing Louisville in the second round when they're playing a good Creighton team. People need to look big picture. And here's the point. While Auburn's playing Alabama State or St. Francis, no disrespect to either school, but while they're playing those teams, and Auburn should be resting starters by the second half, Creighton and Louisville will be in a dogfight, apparently, 8 versus 9. And the amount of energy you got to expend in an 8-9 game is the game. Those are usually the best games of the tournament. Yeah. So Auburn hopefully should be having Ja'Kai Howard and Hudson and some of these guys in the game a lot. Chris Moore in the second half and resting starters while Creighton and Louisville are going 40 minutes. And, oh, by the way, don't disregard, they may even go to overtime. That's the kind of 8-9 matchups. That's big. And we don't know
only 2.5 point spread, I think, opening.
Yeah, so. And Louisville, it's not a slam dunk that they're going to be either. Whatever team comes out of that 8-9 matchup, I think it's going to be they're going to have to expend a lot of energy.
Taylor, how big would be we want a Chris Moore legacy game? That's what we want round one before we head into this next round matchup.
I want a Ja'Kai Howard. I want to see him back on the court so bad, and I understand. The coaching staff knows a lot more about what they're doing than I do, and I'm not questioning them. But I hope that this gives him an opportunity, because something that I've noticed over the past few games of the season is he has been one of the best teammates looking at it from, watching from inside the arena on the bench. He's on his feet. He's motivating his teammates. If they're down, he's one of the guys that's saying, keep your head up. Let's keep fighting. Yep. And that has shifted since the beginning of the season. That was a hot topic, but in a negative light at the beginning of the season. And I do think that in that sense, he's been a very good teammate. He's been very supportive of the guys that are on the court. And I hope that we see more of him in the tournament. Whoever can have a legacy of any bench player. I hope it's any of them, but I do want to see Ja'Kai.
JP Pegues coming out party.
Yes.
Tournament JP is back.
Don't get out of hand now a little bit. Pump the brakes. Let's not get crazy in here. I mean,
continue on to the draw. This is people are still really concerned about Louisville. This is Wizard Dragon. Louisville is better than the last 4 seed is why fans don't like it. Louisville guys, they're one of 4 ACC teams that got in the tournament. Okay. Yes, they were runner-ups in the ACC tournament, but they beat 2 ranked teams all year. They lost to any team with a pulse. They beat Indiana, who didn't even make the tournament, I don't think, and they were ranked at the time. And then they beat Clemson in the ACC tournament. And they lost every other game. Like I don't get where this is coming from. We won a true road game by like 20 points against Kentucky and shot the lights out. And it's going to be more of a neutral site game. I don't care where the location is. Auburn fans travel. We're going to fill that stadium up. All right, let's talk about the draw. We kind of hinted at it a little bit. The region is set. I want to share my screen really quick so we can look at it at the same time. I kind of went ahead and zoomed in on it. Let's see if I can get it right here. Bang. There we go. Can you see it good?
Yes.
All right. So we play the winner of Alabama State and St. Francis, which I think that's interesting. Is that St. Francis like Maryland where we recruit?
No, St. Francis is literally 15 minutes away from where I'm doing this podcast right now.
I got you.
Yeah.
So obviously you feel like you're going to blaze through that one. And then you got the Louisville and Creighton matchup. And that's the one that we've been talking about. I think a very interesting the really where it gets interesting is what this game looks like, the Sweet 16, because you're looking at possibly, a Michigan or a Texas A&M, where you obviously lost to them in the last couple of weeks. Thoughts on a chance to play against Trey Donaldson or the rematch versus Texas A&M?
I would like a Texas A&M rematch. I think I feel better about that game going into it having lost to them than I think I would if Auburn had beat them a couple weeks ago because of what we talked about earlier, the chip on the shoulder. Hey, they beat y'all. Yep. This team beat y'all. Do you want to go home or do you want to keep playing? Because when you lose, you're done. And they've proven that they can beat you. So I don't know that would be a bad thing for to have in your back pocket if you're the coaching staff.
I agree, and I think talking about that Michigan matchup, watched a lot of Michigan basketball games. The Big Ten puts a lot of their games on Sundays. And so after being basketballed out on Saturdays, it was nice to come home from church and watch some Big Ten basketball. Michigan is Auburn is a bad matchup for Michigan style of play. Now, I know they have a couple of good bigs, but Broome is so much more athletic than the Golden Kid. And I just think that Trey Donaldson would play Auburn tight. I believe until you play. It happened with Flanagan last year. It happened with Aiden Holloway. That whole thing, you press a little bit, and I think Auburn would know how to guard Trey Donaldson. I think they would know what to do defensively. So I would like that Michigan matchup, and I agree with Taylor. Please give me Texas A&M, or better yet, let the Yaleys upset Texas A&M, and please, for the love of God, when I hit my knees tonight, give me Yale again.
Yale,
so we can 20-piece them and shut up the narrative about Yale.
Hey, I've seen a lot on this UC San Diego team. They have one of the more explosive offenses in the country. 12s usually fare pretty well against 5s. Would not shock me to see an upset there. But I mean, for the most part, you feel like I'll just say this. I think Auburn should be pretty decently favored in every matchup all the way through to the Elite Eight. I think the Elite Eight's where it could get interesting as we walk through the entire bracket. We're not going to do that tonight, but overall, I love where we're at. I love the I love the draw. I love the opportunity to play that Sweet 16 and that Elite 8 game in Atlanta. I just overall think, I don't know. I'm pretty pumped that we got what we got. So let's talk about the finish to the year and go a little bit deeper into the chip on the shoulder deal. Auburn, trying to get back focused. We did lose 3 of the last 4 games headed into the tournament. I'm not saying it should be a red flag. I'm not saying it should be a worry. But what are the biggest issues that Auburn needs to correct? Dap, in your opinion, if Auburn's going to get back right and get back early, what do you want to see in that first game where you're like, okay, this team's back after it?
Well, I mean, they cleaned up the rebounding thing against Tennessee, but I've said all year I get tired of watching at the end of the game the stat sheet showing Auburn putting its opponent on the free throw line so much more than they go to the free throw line. And then when you do get the opportunity to get within 2 or 3 of total free throw attempts, you cannot miss 14 free throws or give the other team 12 or 13. It's not going to cost you against Alabama State. It may not cost you against a Louisville Creighton, but it will cost you in the Sweet 16. So I want to see them get to the line and be at least 75%. That's it. That's all you need to do. And we have complained or cried out for Broome to get to the foul line. He does. Sorry, big boy, love you, but don't go 5 of 12. You can't do it. You've wanted to get to the line. Now capitalize.
Taylor, thoughts?
I agree. I think free throw shooting, you have to take advantage of that. Those are the easiest points that you can score in a game. You have to make free throws. You have to make free throws. That, and something that I've noticed, I wouldn't say this has been going on consistently over the last stretch of the season, but I do feel like sometimes they get a little bit lackadaisical when it comes to passing, and that can lead to turnovers at times. So sometimes I'm like, okay, why are we looking a little bit lazy right now? Let's clean up these passes. They need to be a little more crisp. Sometimes it looks like they're passing the ball in slow motion a little bit, leading to turnovers. That is something that I would like to see them clean up. Again, that hasn't been a massive turnovers haven't been a massive issue all season, but that is something that I've noticed at times. And I think, like the free throws, that can get you beat when it comes down to it.
Totally. When they're denying, especially on the perimeter, when it's hard for us to get the, those dribble handoffs and things like that, they're really denying it. We get lazy sometimes, and they pick it. And typically that's a coast to coast. That's an easy 2 points. One thing, this is very, to me, I think it was just a cold streak, whatever, in the SEC tournament. My key stat that I always look at is 3-point percentage. Okay. I want to see 3-pointers above 35%. I feel like if we're doing that, whatever happens. I think we shot under 30% the last 2 games, even in one of them, even in a win against Ole Miss. So I think that's probably an outlier. And we shot, like I said, we shot really well in Lexington the last time we played. So I want to see some buckets. I want to see some splashes. I want us to fill it up in Lexington early and often, especially that first game. Let's just go ahead and do it. Let's talk about confidence. Let's talk about how deep we're going to go. Looking at the Taylor, I'll let you go first. What's your predictions? Looking at the way the bracket is right now, how deep do you see Auburn going, or how confident are you Auburn goes at least this far?
I think that we'll see Auburn and Florida in the final four.
Oh, wow.
That matchup in the Final Four. I think that this team is so capable, and we are getting so caught up on losing to these elite teams. And every time that Dunaway and I have done a live show after a loss, I say, guys, a lot of these teams are top 10 teams, not in the SEC, in the country. Like, let's not, let's take a step back. Everyone take a deep breath. These aren't teams that you're going to be seeing in the first round, the second round. Like, these are elite basketball teams. These are elite teams. And I think this team is capable. I mean, I think this team's capable of winning a national championship, and that's not crazy to say. But I think that they're going to get their head on straight after, the rough patch. This team hasn't shied away from adversity in terms of losing a game and then, just moping around, in my opinion. I think, they know when they lose, their season's over.
Yeah.
And I think that pressure will be good for this team. I feel confident in this team playing in the Final Four.
I love it. What are you thinking?
Final Four. Couple of
Let's
reasons. Go. Taylor made some great points. Number one, for perspective, if this Auburn basketball team, because we always make the comparison about how Auburn fans sometimes get caught up in the football analogies, was going into the college football playoff as the number 1 seed, what would be the different perspective right now from Auburn fans? They'd be loving it. It would be, oh, we're winning it. But yet they're doing it in basketball, and it's like getting beat in the second round. You're a elite basketball school in the last couple of years. Act like it. Okay. So I'm saying I agree with Taylor. I think Auburn's going to get their head screwed on. I think that this desperation, knowing it's one and done. And then I pay attention to successful coaches more on shows than I do writers or pundits that think that they know a lot about basketball. Jay Wright, who is a man I respect greatly and has won multiple national championships at Villanova, has Auburn beating Florida in the national championship game. If he does, it's good enough for him. A national championship coach who knows ball, I'm not shying away from it. Own it if you're Auburn. Embrace it. You're the number 1 overall seed for a reason. You're going to the Final Four.
So you think he says they beat Florida to go to the national championship game because they would play Florida in the Final Four.
Oh, I'm sorry. He had them beating Florida, and then he said he had them winning the national championship. Jay Wright did on the CBS.
Give me some, Jay Wright. I'm with you, man. I think it's a cakewalk to the Sweet 16. You're probably going to have a little dogfight in the Elite 8. But look, Iowa State, their leading scorer, or one of their leading scorers, Keyshawn Gilbert's out. He scored 23 against Auburn. We love their guards. That's one of them that's injured. So that's going to be one of their better players that's out. I don't know much about Michigan State at all. Dap, you said you've been watching, Big Ten on Sundays.
Shocked that they lost. Michigan State scares me because, like I mentioned before, Izzo, Pitino, and it's not just because it's coaches that end in O. When they get to tournaments, coaches that are experienced in the NCAA tournament, it's a little dicey. And Izzo's one of those guys that he just draws it up. And now Patino with St. John. So, yeah, Michigan State, I'm shocked they didn't win the Big Ten tournament. I'm shocked they lost in the semifinals. They're a very good basketball team. And let's not forget, I think Memphis upset them in Maui, or Auburn would have been playing them too.
Yeah, exactly.
You talk about a gauntlet. My goodness.
Holy cow.
Spaghetti coaches. That's right, TK. Good paisans. They can make a good sauce and they can coach basketball. Let's go.
I've always wondered that. Like, how did Italian guys just get like the corner of the market on basketball coaches? It's crazy.
Not players like a comedian that I like.
Yes.
You never see somebody saying "shoot the three, Nunzio," but they're good coaches. They can cook some pasta up for you. Yeah, they're good coaches,
and they can cook up some basketball plays too.
Cook up some basketball plays, right?
I love it. So Auburn plays Thursday, I believe, at like 1:50 Central Standard Time. They'll play the winner of, like I said, Alabama State or St. Francis Academy in Maryland. And
it's not Academy. Hey, I'll just say this too. I'm in a region right now. There's a lot of people in this region that go to Robert Morris they're excited to play Alabama. I said, well, sometimes you don't want to get what you wish, what you hope for. Yeah,
exactly. We'll get to watch the 8 and 9 game right before that. So it should be a lot of fun. And it kicks off Thursday. So we'll have several shows up until then. We really appreciate you guys listening. Dap, tell them where they can find you and support you.
You can follow me on X, Dap6410, Instagram, Daryl Dap. And then, of course, I'm with Zach Blackerby on Wednesdays and Fridays. And then during this tournament, we'll be going live right after these tournament games.
Love it. Taylor, same for you.
Yes. Next round live, you can go back if you missed it over the weekend. We have a lot of sound from the locker room because now that the postseason is here, we are able to talk to the players in the locker room in a more casual setting than at a podium. So there's a bunch of stuff from the win and then after the loss as well. And then we will be doing live shows after Auburn and Alabama games as well on the next round.
Absolutely. You can find me here every single day this week. Another episode of the Top Button Podcast. And don't forget to go to mybookie.ag, use coupon code BARN for a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Hey, the tournament starts pretty quick, so better get that.
Speaking of Italians.
Yeah, better get that account set up. Guys, I really appreciate you. Thanks for joining. We'll be back again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening and drive home safely.